Bitcoin is rallying strongly right now. We're seeing a nice recovery from the 25k region all the way to the 23,700 region. But is this a relief rally? Something we spoke about earlier this month, September 1st. We spoke about a potential move towards 27,200 to turn an old support into a new resistance. Is this a relief rally? Let's talk about that. Subscribe to the channel for more videos like this in the future. Like this video if you enjoy videos like these, and let's talk about it. So September 1st, we've been talking about this for a while here, potential relief rally, because anytime you see a monthly candle close below a key level of support, so right over here we saw two long downside wicks, very similar to what we saw right over here, right? So two long downside wicks below this key support, in the same way, two downside wicks below this key support as well. But ultimately, we were able to protect this support here. And the analogous situation right over here was that we were able to break beyond this old resistance, but we never really turned it into a support. So whenever we have a resistance and then have a resistance and then break it, it's oftentimes that we reclaim these levels as new potential supports. So if we look back to the previous year, for instance, have a look here. This was in 2022, mid 2022. This was acting as a support right over here, then acting as a resistance in these 3 consecutive months before rejecting, breaking beyond that old support, then resistance, then breaking beyond that old resistance. And right over here, you can see a fantastic retest before rallying to new highs. So essentially an old support flipped into a resistance, then broken as a resistance, and then turned back into a support. And that's essentially the life cycle of a support and a resistance. So right over here, if we look at this level, acting as a resistance for 3 consecutive months here, this month, this, and this month, before revisiting this resistance, breaking beyond here to new highs, but never really retesting that level as a support. So if we talk about this level of 27,150, this was a level that was held as a support for 1, 2, 3 consecutive months, downside wicking below it, gathering that liquidity below 27,150, and enjoying a nice run up afterwards. But unfortunately, this past August, we got a monthly close below that key level, which means that this candle body is very different to the reaction that we saw in the buyers just a few months prior. This candle body showing that the bulls are lacking strength and not able to press price up, not gathering that much liquidity and having that strength on the bull side. This was quite volatile buy side buyback action, quite aggressive in buying the dip. Here you're not seeing that psychology anymore. So this 27,150 level is beginning to look a lot like this level, right? Here we saw support hold for 3 consecutive months before recovering above there, but ultimately losing that level and rejecting from that level. So what's interesting about this here is that we also saw 3 consecutive months before losing here, and then now trying to recover basically for that level. So these two levels, this one here and this one here, are quite similar in the sense that they were once a support and losing support and potentially being flipped into a new resistance. So that's what I talk about in the tweet, that a relief rally into 27,150 and closing below this key level would set price up for a revisit of 23k, which is the next available monthly level, which was never really retested as a support. And you could ask yourself, do we really need to retest that level as a new support? And the answer to that question is that we've been tagging those levels, reclaiming them and losing them and reclaiming them again over the past year or so, quite consistently seeing those monthly levels be reclaimed. One of those levels, of course, being here. This lost support, resistance, and then break support, resistance rather, and then reclaim as a support here. And right over here, that was never really reclaimed as a support, never really retested. So right now we're seeing that tweet is playing out 18 months later, or at least 18 days later. 18 days later, we're seeing this portion of the relief rally play out. So right now we're at a moment of truth point where are we going to see price reject from here? And it's mid-month, so we still have the second part of the month to really give us that answer, because a monthly close above here and then a pullback into this 27,150 level and then retesting that as a support before continuing. So in October, for instance, if that sort of situation occurs where we reclaim this level, then that would be a bullish confirmation. But if we get a monthly close below here, that would potentially set this candle up for rejection, going into October, because we'd probably see confirmation of this old support right over here turn into a new resistance right over here. And the thing about this current price action being at the moment of truth really is that we have seen over the past year loads of upside wicking below key levels, or at least beyond key levels. So the upside here, upside wick was 8% long right over here. So you can see that this 8% long upside wick was around the length of this upside wick over here. This one over here was around 6% upside wick. So upside wicks below, or at least beyond, but also below, really. Below we also see downside wicks, and above key levels we see upside wicks. If we were to see an upside wick beyond 27,150 this month, that would get us to 29k roughly, 29,500, even as high as 29,500 if we were to see really an 8% upside wick. I'm just putting 7% here to be a bit more on the conservative side. A relief rally into 29k even could occur in the form of an upside wick. But of course, if we get a monthly close above 27,150, then we'd have a crystallization of this candle above here, acceptance and potential positioning for a reclaim of this level, and this pathway would no longer be valid. So that monthly close is quite pivotal. It's a really pivotal monthly close, but for the time being, we could be in upside wicking mode, and that upside wick could see price go to as high as 29,500 before rejecting and ultimately monthly closing below this key level. So that monthly close is really important, because what we don't want to see here, if we're a bull for Bitcoin, we don't want to see an upside wick like this by the end of the month. So we'd like to see a monthly close above here to dissipate some of that bearishness that we've been seeing in the market with all the fractals that I've been posting on Twitter. This is the key level to be reclaimed by the end of the month as a new support. It needs to be reclaimed, because otherwise we could establish essentially a new range that is going to be 23,300 to 27,400, or at least 27,150, because that's the range currently that we're in. So with this monthly close below 27,150, we're trying to break back into this range here. Is Bitcoin going to confirm a new range as a new home? Because if you think about it, this was the range high for Bitcoin for many months, and this was the range low, 27,150. And we consolidated here for a few months, but ultimately lost this range. So the question here is, if we turn this black 27,150 level into a new support, then we're going to confirm the beginning of a new range for Bitcoin. And that's going to be essentially a consistent lower high and a new downtrend on Bitcoin following those 31k highs, essentially. So if Bitcoin is going to turn 27,150 into a new resistance, it's going to establish this level once a support into a new range high resistance, which would set price up for a drop into deeper levels within this current range of 23,300 to 27,150. This could become the new home, because this was the old home for Bitcoin, but it lost that home, and now it could develop a new consolidation range here And that's what we might be seeing, because before we were seeing upside wicks into this range, right? We were seeing upside wicks into this range, and then we blew completely past that range. And since then, we've been seeing downside wicks into that range. So with all these upside wicks and then downside wicks into this range, we can see that there is a fair amount of liquidity to be explored within this range here. And we might see Bitcoin reject from 27,150 and establish a new home between this new range. So the monthly close is really important. Is this a relief rally? For the time being, it does look like it is a relief rally. But if we zoom out to the real broader perspective of the 4-year cycle, the 4-year cycle suggests to us that we could see a bit more downside going into late 2023 and early 2024. And if you'd like to learn more about that video, the 4-year cycle, check it out in the top right hand corner. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll speak to you in that one. Speak to you soon.